Hi, this is Patrick. In this video, I'm going to talk about one possible of many different workflows you can go through or use when you're using something like Mendeley, Zotero, or EndNote. So I've talked before with students that I've never really gotten in the practice of using a reference manager or a bibliographic manager. They're called different things. Early 2000s when I started using EndNote, it just never really stuck. At the time, one of the bigger selling points was that it would format your reference lists when with an add-on for Word. But usually at the time, one, it was always kind of clunky. If you wanted to submit it to a journal or something, they didn't want the codes in there. But also, there was certain problems where it was kind of like garbage in, garbage out. So if you actually didn't do certain things right, like the capitalization of an article, it would be wrong in the reference list. So at the time, I just got in the habit of really learning how to do the APA reference list myself. So I'd memorized the basic ways to format certain things. Fast forward 20-something years, let's say later, some people still really like that kind of add-on. For me today, when I think of the power of a reference manager, something like Zotero or Mendeley, it's really, for me, not about the reference list. For one, a lot of these don't play really well with Google Docs. That's where I do a lot of my writing these days. For me, the power comes is that this is a place where I can write notes, annotations, if you will, and have it stored in a place where I can search. So, because 2 years later, maybe I forgot which article talked about, learners' connectedness with their institution or whatever it might be. And the other thing you can do with these now is that you can share references and you can share these kind of entries. But one thing that the last few years hasn't changed, to my knowledge, with each of these systems is file storage. So they typically are free, but the way they kind of make their money is basically getting you with your file storage. And so you can basically store your PDFs on the web-based apps and kind of sync to the app on your phone or the desktop version, but they both have different things. So I'm just looking at Zotero and Mendeley. So Zotero, basically, as an open source tool, it only gives you 300 megabytes of file storage for free. That's basically, probably a dozen PDFs. I don't know, maybe. It's not a lot. And so Mendeley gives you a bit more, 2 gigabytes, but still, I would say that's not a ton. And so I think that either of these, you can basically notice that it's the cloud storage, that you can store them locally. But then when you think about going multiple devices, whatever it might be, you lose some things. So when I think about these tools, I first, as I mentioned, don't think about the reference list or formatting APA. That doesn't matter that much to me. Some of them will be able to convert to APA to Chicago. And that deep down, I have, wanted to write a paper for a certain journal and they use it, Chicago or some type of EndNote that frustrates me. And there are those moments I probably would love to be able to click a button and have it all perfect. But by and large, that's not important to me. Recognizing the wanting to be on multiple computers and the file storage and not wanting to pay, I've never been in the mindset of storing my things online with these apps. In my mind, they should either be in, say, a Dropbox folder that's I sync, or really Google Drive is what I've been moving to lately. So that's kind of my mindset. So when I'm searching, or if I want to be the most efficient, what I would do is I would start with the Boise State Library when I'm doing research, because I can basically search for things and import basic reference material like the abstract keywords from articles into Zotero or Mendeley. Right now I'm just going to focus on Zotero for this video. And this is, I'm rusty, as I said, I don't regularly use this, but I do think I should. It's kind of those things that I don't exercise enough, but I think I should and think everyone else should. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to try search for Academic Search Premier. You can see I've, in another video, I talked about Hot for Teacher, and this paper I wrote, a few other papers I've written here. But right here, we're just going to see what we get for Patrick R. Lowenthal. Okay, so we can see a few different things that I've written, but we'll just take this example here. So one of the things that you can do, and every one of these databases, not all of them do it, but a lot of them do it, is that you can do this save cite export here. And if you're doing this with a bunch, you can save it. And so let's try this, and you can see I'm even brief citation abstract. Maybe let's go detailed. Let's hit save and let's see what it does here. Okay, that's not what I wanted, but you can see actually the information there is pretty good. Each one of these are a little different. So right now I'm going to just go ahead and say export just to do this. So down here, you can look up here. This first one's direct into all of these, main things. So we've only talked about Mendeley and say Zotero and EndNote, Zotero, Mendeley, right? But there are others out there. But I'm going to hit save. And it says, do you want to import these? And I think that's because I have the connector up. What I expected it to do instead was to save it to my desktop, and then I would open it and it would come up. But you can see right up here at the top, it imported this in for me. So I didn't have to add it, right? So, and if I click on this, I can, or even just look over here, I can see it's added the abstract, it's added the title. But see, in this case, this example of kind of garbage in, garbage out, is for APA, this actually has to be sentence case. So all of these have to be lowercase. So if I'm going to use kind of this, let it do the reference list, at least in the past, you would have to fix this. You could clean this up more. You could maybe the abstract from author you don't want. Maybe actual March isn't really needed when you think of APA. I just need the year, pages there. Now I'm looking down here for a DOI. I don't see that. So that's a little annoying that it didn't import that in. So if I was going to double check, I would do that now because there it is there. And even this formatting isn't the formatting that they like with APA these days. So I clicked on the find it. And now I'm going to try to go to the exact article. So Springer's different. Everyone's a little different, right? Where they put the citation or the DOI for the article. In this case, I'm going to scroll down, and I know that it's usually down here. Now, in this case, what I don't like is they've already kind of added the Boise State information in it, where I don't want that. So I'm going to just ignore that for now, and I'm going to go to download the PDF and see if I can find it there. See, that's what I want. That's the way the DOI looks best, is when it's set up as a URL. And so I can go over here, I can add this, and I do this because this is something I have to go find later. And notice here, it even gives a direct link to the article. So later, if for some reason there's an issue with my annotation or whatever, or my link to Google Drive, it will allow me to get to it that way. And so this is why I like to start with the library when I can. This is where I could also add other notes to myself. Did I read it? Did I not? I could have tags, read, not read, so I can search. I could add related. So there's some other things here, but right now what I want to do is I want to make sure I have this on my desktop. And then I'm going to go over to Drive, and I'm going to set up a folder. In my case, I have a folder called Scholarship, and then for each project, I might have a different folder or collection of projects. So like I've done stuff on video research, and so I might have video articles all in one. And so this is a video article, so I'm just going to bring this over. You might just have one for your doctoral study, so you don't need a different folder per se for each. You might just have one called, article or sources or resources. The other thing that I tend to do, and you don't see it consistently in this example, but I tend to name my articles whatever the name is. Let me open this in preview because it's easier to show you. Is I will take this title, and this tends to be how I do this. I don't always, but I would do Lowenthal -year and then article name, and I try to be consistent. And so Lowenthal just being the first author. If there's multiple, I don't worry about that. And so once it's here, I drag this over. You can see down there Snelson. You can see me doing it some. Lately, I've been cleaning up my Dropbox, so it's not a great example. But I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to find Get Link. And if I wanted to make this available to other people, I would change that. In this case, it's fine if it's just me. And so when I click here, I believe if I just open it, actually, well, see, it wants to go to the online version. I believe there's a way to add, if I remember right. I know I could just add it in the notes. And so, and I could change the URL there, but I thought there was also a way. Let's just go through here. And this is where I tell you I don't do this regularly, or I'm not a consistent user of this. But for now, the example we'll just do is add note, add there. And even this, like some of this stuff here, you might be like, you know, this I don't really need. So move to trash. So here under notes, I have that one, and then I'm going to add another note, and this would be where I'd add my annotations or my summary. Like if you think of an annotated bib, this might be where you would write your summary, right? And you could get in a habit, if you wanted to, of saying purpose, right? Add. Method, add. Results, add. Limitations, add. And then key quotes, add. So you could do something like this. And so in this case, I wouldn't even have to actually have access to the article if I did something like this, because I could just trust my notes and trust that I added things exactly. And so as long as I'm detailed, I use my own words, this is stuff I can then put into any paper I'm writing later. But then the question becomes, how do you actually annotate the article and you read it? Well, this is where, for me, I tend to do things more paper-based or desktop-based. And so this is where I could do this simply in Google Drive. I could go through and I could basically add comments this way. Now, it doesn't give you the full suite of things that you might want with an annotated tool, but I could sit here and go to, let's say, you know, the method. This actually isn't that type of article, but I could highlight something and do it this way. And so if I have two screens open, I can write my notes. I could be annotating it this way and adding my comments about whatever I, you know, let's say method. Not that it needs to be. Or I could even say something like, not a strong approach to solve this problem, right? And the idea with my annotations, more, you know, it's not just underlining and highlighting things, you know, so I could highlight something and say method or whatever, and it makes it easy to find, but it's something that later, years later, let's say, that I could find this, and it'd be easy to get to. And I even think up here, this could be where I could insert the link at the top back to this. Oops. See, that's where I think I just screwed up and nope, there it is. All right, so my question in my mind was, if I did this, and I could keep the full URL there, or I could just say right. So, and if I did something like this, I could just delete this. And the reason why you might want to take an approach like this is then you would only have one note per article, you know. And so then the other approach could be, and I'm not going to show this in this video, is I could take this article, right, and it could be even this version here, and I could annotate it with an annotated software on my computer, or in this case, if it's in Drive, I could pull this up on my iPhone or my phone or my tablet, and I could use, for instance, I've used iAnnotate in the past. And the nice thing about an annotation software is that I would then be able to use colors and other things besides just commenting. But the problem with, as helpful as this is, annotating the article itself, what's more important to me long term is that I have it all here. because I don't want to have to later pull this up, go into the article, look for the exact thing. I'd rather look at my summary notes, and from my summary notes, trust that I did a good job. Or if I needed to, I would then go back to and be like, what did they exactly say there? And that's when I could go back and look at it, and I could find my comments. And this could be a way too where you could have multiple people working and say Google Drive, sharing and annotating or discussing and commenting together. So this is just one way of many to do something like this. And so this is definitely assuming more that you're working with a desktop and that you are either comfortable just using Google Drive to annotate with comments, or that you have some type of annotation software on your computer itself. I hope this is helpful. Thanks.